Today, we're going to talk about how to fall in love with the grind. Sometimes when people come to me, Dr. K, haha, genius, right? Harvard. They sort of expect me to do the impossible, which is fall in love with working 80 hours a week, right? How do I, Dr. K, I'm tired of working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week. I feel so overworked. I'm exhausted, but I have friends. I know people on the internet that are like part of this hustle culture, and they grind for 70 to 80 hours a week. And sometimes people will even ask me, Dr. K, how many days a week do you work? Spoiler alert, about 6 to 7 days. How many hours a week do I work? Probably about 80 hours a week, maybe 60, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. And so how is this possible? How do you fall in love with the grind? So I teach them things like vairagya or detachment. I teach them basically the answers to their questions. So as I would teach these very fancy things to my patients, I discovered something really interesting. It doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? Because people are fucking tired. And the key thing about loving the grind is that you can't be exhausted, fundamentally. See, there are two kinds of tiredness. There's one kind of tiredness that's like, let's say, when I had my bachelor party, we spent the day on the lake, okay? So we went out on a boat, we swam around, it was a speedboat, we had some fun, we did grilling, and I was exhausted at the end of the day. That is a different kind of tiredness from the kind of tiredness that is wearing people down. And so if you want to love the grind, the first step is to not be exhausted. And that's what we're going to talk about. So this is where there are a couple of fundamental things that we do horribly wrong. And at the top of the list is the weekend. The concept of the weekend, I think, is one of the worst inventions in the history of humanity, arguably the worst one. We created this idea of the weekend where you get to recover from what we do to you during the week. The moment we created the weekend, we gave people license to absolutely chew through us through the week. We felt this front and center with something in medicine called the post-call day. So when you're on call, usually what happens is you show up at the hospital around 6:30 in the morning. You work a regular day, 6:30 in the morning until about 7 in the evening. This is a regular day that you work in the hospital when you're in residency, 6 days a week. Then you start your call at 7 p.m. And your 7 p.m. call ends at 9 a.m. the next day after sign out and things like that. So you're working like a 26, 27, 28-hour shift. And since we have worked you to the bone, we're going to give you a post-call day. So then you get to go home at 9 a.m. after having worked 28 hours, and then you have to come back the next day at 6:30 at your regular time. So the idea of the post-call day is like, oh, if we work you any harder, you will literally crack and fall apart. That's also what we do with the weekend. We have this idea that we can work you to the bone 5 days a week, and then you can take 2 days to recover. We also have that with this idea of vacations, right? Oh my God, you haven't taken a vacation in 8 months. You must be exhausted. That must be untenable. Why don't you take a vacation, recover for 2 weeks, and then go back into the meat grinder? If you are spending more energy during the day than you recover when you go to bed at night, if you are not waking up tomorrow morning back to 100%, this will never work and you will never love the grind. This is the true way that you pave the foundation to be able to work a large amount. We don't want to work up any kind of exhaustion debt. We need to be able to pay that exhaustion down every single day when we go to bed. When we wake up the next morning, we want to be healthy, fresh, and ready to go. If you can do that, right? So I want y'all to think about the days that you woke up where you felt full of energy and how much work you can accomplish on that day. The goal is to wake up every day in that way. Now, that may sound impossible, right? Oh my God, Dr. K, my job is so hard. They demand so much of me that there's no way I can be recharged every single day. So that's where we're going to go into 2 or 3 different aspects of tiredness, okay? The first is deconditioning. So the life that we live right now is not sustainable because of things like weekends and stuff like that. But the main reason it's not sustainable is because we end up deconditioning ourselves. So I see this first and foremost with emotional deconditioning. So when I work with people who are exhausted and want to love the grind, I'll ask them, what is your day-to-day emotional experience like? I don't ask that question because no one knows how to answer that question. I'll ask them, what was your day like yesterday? Tell me about how you felt. What was it like? What was challenging? right? And basically what I would find is that people are not good at handling their emotions throughout the day. This is why happy hour on Thursday, and everyone at the office is like, thank God for happy hour, because if we didn't have alcohol to numb all of our negative emotions, I can't wait for happy hour on Thursday because it's been such a tough week. We live in a society that glorifies exhaustion at work. And in medicine, top of the list. I still remember with great pride how hard we would get crushed when we were on call, okay? So this is like when you're on call, like, so I went to Massachusetts General Hospital, man's greatest hospital, flagship teaching hospital of the Harvard Medical School, and we pride ourselves on getting destroyed by the work, right? Oh my God, last night, dude, we got crushed. We got 32 patients in the ED, and we had 2 emergencies, one on the general floor, one on the psychiatric floor. We got absolutely demolished. And everyone comes in and they're like, man, that sounds awful, dude. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And we're all very like emotionally supportive, but you walk out with pride, you know, like, yeah, I survived the trenches. Like, I'm a real man now. So as we have challenging experiences with clients, with bosses, with patients, whatever, and we have these negative emotions, we tend to do things. We pull out our phone, we drink alcohol, we go home, we start playing video games. And so we're not really managing those negative emotions. And so what we really want to do is learn how to sit with our emotions. And these are the 2 questions that I would encourage y'all ask yourself in order to emotionally condition yourself. What am I feeling right now? What is this emotion trying to tell me? And what do I feel like doing? Okay. So those are the 3 questions that we want you to ask yourself if you're trying to boost your EQ, basically. But as we become emotionally deconditioned, what tends to happen is as negative emotional experiences come up throughout the day, this taxes our frontal lobes, the parts of our brain that give us discipline, that give us willpower, that help us do sustained focus and lock in and do the work. Those get taxed by emotions. So as long as you are not managing your emotions properly, you will feel exhausted and your brain will be unable to lock in because it's spending all of its energy on pushing down those emotions. So this kind of emotional conditioning, emotional processing, being tied to the work that we do in our goals is precisely the kind of work that we focus on in coaching, especially career coaching. The second way that we decondition ourselves is actually through our frontal lobes. So we have lost the capacity for sustained focus and concentration. This is something I talk about extensively in Dr. K's guide. There's this yogic practice called dharana, which is training your mind to be able to focus on one thing. When you tell it, hey, mind, we're going to do this thing right now and we're going to ignore all other distracting thoughts, it actually starts to do what you tell it to do. What we're seeing with technology is the more notifications we have, the more that our attention gets pulled in different ways. Oh, I feel like browsing Reddit, so before I even realize it, I pick up my phone and I start scrolling on it. So as our attention and our frontal lobes become deconditioned, our ability to focus on our work, finish our work in a efficient manner actually goes down. And then what ends up happening, what I see in my patients is that when they're not able to focus and lock in, their work stretches over the course of hours, days, even weeks. And I don't know if you guys have ever had like this axe hanging over your head at work where you're like, oh my God, I have to do this thing. I have to do this thing. I have to do this thing. And every night when you go to bed, you're like, oh my God, I have to do that thing tomorrow. And every day when you wake up the next day, you're like, oh my God, I didn't do that thing. And so I want y'all to think about this. How exhausting is this one idea of a task? And as long as it is weighing on you, you will be exhausted and you will never have the capacity to love the grind. The third area of deconditioning is actually physical deconditioning. There's so much interesting stuff. I mean, I've been learning a lot just from myself and looking at literature and stuff. So I think our hips, our hamstrings, our legs, and our spines are messed up. So everyone has neck tension up here. They have lower back pain, but the real problem is actually in the hips. We have most people have an anterior pelvic tilt. We're kind of hunched over. We're not breathing properly. We have an immense amount of physical deconditioning. Now, why is this important? Because when we're deconditioned, then when we wake up the next day, we're fundamentally weak, right? So when I take the elevator every day, taking the stairs is harder. And when we're talking about loving the grind, when we're talking about working 6 to 7 days a week, you cannot be deconditioned and successfully work day after day after day after day. So I want y'all to think about this for a moment. The way that the human body has evolved, the most natural state for human beings is to work 7 days a week, is to work 365 days a year. That's what we're actually designed for biologically. And what evidence do I have for that? Only every other species on the planet. Does a mosquito get a day off? Does a lizard get a day off? Does an antelope get a day off? Does a crocodile get a day off? None of them get days off, and none of them need days off. So once we start conditioning ourselves to be the way that we are supposed to be, then that kind of tiredness will leave us, okay? As we undo the process of deconditioning, as we start to condition ourselves, you will feel a transient level of increased tiredness. So every time I go to the gym, I'm going to feel more tired at the end of the day, but I will be stronger the next day. As you start emotional conditioning, as you start frontal lobe conditioning, as you start physical conditioning, you will feel more tired transiently, but you will be more productive over the long run. And this becomes the really hard part about this process, is that for a window of time, you are going to have to expend more energy, which is already going to be hard because you already feel a little bit burnt out and exhausted. You're going to have to spend a little bit more energy to become a stronger human being for tomorrow. So I recently had a call. I'm doing a lot of work right now, and the content director here at Healthy Gamer expressed concern, and they're like, "Hey, is this too much?" Honestly, it's probably a little bit too much. But I was like, you know what? I'm meditating for 20 to 60 minutes a day. I'm going to the gym a couple days a week. I'm focused on what I ate. My diet yesterday was black rice and mung beans for dinner, black rice and acorn squash for lunch, some tofu thrown in there. So like when you're fueling your body in the right way, you are able to maintain a high level of work. Another thing that seriously impacts our mental conditioning when we wake up in the morning is the way that we go to sleep. So this is something I'm just tossing in. It's not something I really thought about, but this is just true. I hate to say it. If y'all are using any kind of sleep aid, right? So if you're using alcohol to fall asleep, using weed to fall asleep, if y'all are using devices before you go to bed, here's the problem with all of these things. All of these things interfere, and melatonin may do this too. All of these things interfere with REM sleep. So as we go through the night, the amount of time that our brain spends in each of the 5 sleep stages, actually changes. REM sleep is rapid eye movement sleep. It's when our body is paralyzed. It's also when we dream, okay? And this is when we process our emotions. So if your REM sleep is impaired by using alcohol, by all the stuff that helps you fall asleep, usually if it helps you fall asleep and it's not like natural, like listening to an audiobook or white noise or something like that, if it's any kind of substance or chemical aid that helps you fall asleep, there's a good chance it'll interfere with REM sleep. And here's the problem. When we interfere with REM sleep, it impairs our dreaming. When we impair our dreaming, we impair our emotional processing. So I did a whole video about why we dream and how to deal with dreams and things like that. But the reason that we dream, animals dream, is because it's the primary way, I believe, that we deal with emotions while we are sleeping. Now, if you do this reconditioning part, if you start sleeping well, then you're sort of like, I honestly want to say 70 to 80% of the way there. Now, what about the loving the grind part? So there are a couple of other things that I found that really help my patients. And this is the kind of stuff, by the way, that we try to help people out in coaching with. So this is like, how to put together your life so that you're better off a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. So the first is, undoubtedly, the life that you have right now is going to be tiring in some ways. And you have to do extra work to dig yourself out of the life that you have into the life that you want. Right? So it's not going to, this is the problem, is you're already kind of at the verge of drowning and you're already exhausted and you're so tired when you get home. All you have time for is to play video games and you don't feel like doing anything else. So is there any trick to help us do a little bit of extra work, which is going to leave us even more exhausted, right? And then we're sort of like, it's tricky because now we're even more tired when we wake up tomorrow, but this has to be gone through in a temporary way. So what we want to do is frame the work that we're doing as stepping stones to the life that we want. Now, this engages a really important cognitive principle. So if you look at rats who become depressed and inactive, there's some really fascinating studies. It's really sad what they do. They put rats basically, they dump them in a bucket of water where there's a little subsurface, right beneath the surface, there's a little like pillar that they can stand on. So they swim around and they're panicking. And once they find the pillar, they hang on to it and then they're fine. So then what happens is when we're trying to measure depression in rats, what we'll do is then they'll remove the pillar and they'll drop the rat in. And then the rat will swim around and it'll look for the pillar, look for the pillar, look for the pillar. It doesn't find the pillar, and eventually it'll give up. The interesting thing is it gives up. It still has energy to keep swimming, but mentally it'll give up. And if we mess with its serotonin concentration and things like that, it'll start giving up way faster, etc. So here's the key thing to understand from this principle. If you are in a dead-end life, your brain will not provide you with the energy to get out of it. Right? That's the whole point of giving up. When things are over, when you perceive, let's say you're playing a video game and you guys are down 20K and the enemy team is winning. Once you perceive that there is no point to the task that you are doing, the brain will give up. It'll decrease your motivation. You'll just give up entirely. So the key thing that I teach people is to view your tasks as a stepping stone. Even your dead-end job is a stepping stone. There's something called the mnemic effect, which is a psychological principle that I'm also alluding to. This is about how to get people to do hard things. And the key way to get someone to do something that is hard is to frame it as a stepping stone to what they want, right? And we use this all the time. Eat your vegetables, then you'll get dessert. Clean your room, then you get to play video games or watch Naruto, which is what my kids are. They have to shower and then they get to watch Naruto today. We're going to watch it. It's Chunin exam. Epic. No spoilers. So if that last bit of digging yourself out of that hole is going to be using this principle of viewing everything that you don't want to do as a stepping stone. Now, I understand that this is a little bit contradictory because here I am saying don't do anything that will exhaust you, right, and leave you more tired for the next day. And that's where, unfortunately, I see that it usually takes about anywhere from 90 to 180 days of people adopting this attitude of reconditioning, which is going to make you a little bit more tired, working on stepping stones to your next thing. And if you all do this, something beautiful will happen. At the very beginning, you will be more exhausted, right? But it'll be a little bit like boot camp, where if you keep at it for a couple of weeks and you can make small changes at a time, eventually you'll start to shift. And eventually you'll start to have more energy. You'll feel more recovered because you've reconditioned and you're working on getting past that dead-end job. And then you open the door to love the grind. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed today's video. We talk about a bunch of topics like this on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you're already subscribed, GG, and we'll see you in chat.